is such an important and interesting and complex, and for some people difficult topic today. And I think it's such a powerful area of resource that I want to talk to us about, which is having a relationship with some archetypal form as a higher power. And I want to start by starting with the mystical point of view, the awareness practice point of view, which is that for the mystic, in all the different traditions of the world, in every tradition, in the mystical wing of every tradition of the world, there is this, there's the potential for an experience of being one with everything, being one with that source, that essence is everywhere, including in every cell of our bodies, that we're never been separate from the beginning. And there just is an experience of oneness, which for me, and in most traditions, the best way to access that is through meditation practice, whatever that meditation practice is called within a tradition. So rather than getting very conceptual about it, if you meditate, or do mindfulness, if you do mindfulness or you meditate, and you really become practiced in it, and the first step really is to be able to keep a sense of presence and not just get lost in your internal dialogue. So rather than getting lost in thinking, you staying present in what you feel, what you hear, what you see in the present moment. And that by paying attention to what you see, hear, and feel, there is less room for internal dialogue. There's less space for internal dialogue. And then you get moments when there's no internal dialogue at all. There's no problem with internal dialogue, but too much of it is a bad thing. It's the left brain, the cognitive brain, is about map making, and it doesn't directly experience the world. It only experiences the world through the right brain. And so when we meditate, we're leaning into the parts of ourselves that directly experience the world. So the first stage of that sort of mystical awareness practice is keeping really present in the present moment and allowing thoughts to arise and disappear without following those thoughts. And then the sort of the ultimate stage, or the next stage anyway, is when there are gaps in your thinking. So not only is there space, in a sense, the first stage is when you find that there are gaps in your thoughts and there's just presence. But the deeper level is when there is no longer someone observing anymore. So to start with, you have to keep the observer reasonably strong to watch what's arising in your mind, not to get lost in your thoughts. But when you get quite experienced at that, then you relax a little bit more, and then suddenly there's no observer anymore, and then there's just oneness. So that's the sort of the mystical state that we aspire to, when everything is one. So out of that sense of oneness, we can, if everything is one and forms arise in this oneness, one of the things that I can do is project into a sky an image of an archetype of oneness that's separate from myself. It's a sort of clever trick in a way. It's more than a clever trick, but it's worth remembering that when you imagine an archetypal form in the sky above your head, it's a projection from oneness, of which you are already a part. But it's actually, so you might say, well, why not just do oneness practice? Why not just do non-dual practice? And the answer is because sometimes it's so powerful for our hearts to pray to an image or a feeling or a sense of a higher power, something that is bigger than us. That really works well for many, many people. And it's the sort of the beauty of psychology that we can do these sorts of practices. So having said that, in fact, in Buddhist practice, Tibetan Buddhist practice, you will project a deity in front of you. And then at the from oneness, you project a deity. And at the end of the practice, you go back to oneness, which I think is a sort of very beautiful way of thinking about it. So, but in all the traditions, they have that dichotomy of, well, everything is one, that's the mystical, source is everywhere and in everything, and then also the praying to something imagined, visualized, experienced as a higher power. So let's talk about praying to a higher power. And it's such a powerful, interesting thing, because even though I would say my primary practice is leaning into that oneness, yet there is something so heart-touching and evoking by right this moment, just imagining, a higher power somewhere above my head. And right now, because I'm just wanting to be careful about this being non-denominational, not connected to a tradition, I'm imagining it in quite an abstract form. But I can just imagine something in an abstract form, like some source, or, where it's like there was why did things come into existence? There was non-existence. Once upon a time, there was nothing. And then things came into existence. Now, I'm not sure even the question, why did they come into existence, is a useful one, but you might even say the process of transformation from non-existence to existence, what on earth is that? So I could pray to that, to whatever it is that gives rise to things moving from non-existence to existence, to that possibility in the universe. And then every culture has metaphors and archetypes and traditions and saints and great teachers that have stories attached to them that people identify with. And then they create theologies, but also, the positive is that they create paths. So there's a saying in Zen Buddhism, which is the path doesn't go all the way. And you could actually turn that around, and you could say that before there was a path, there was spaciousness, or there was emptiness, or there was the non-dual. In the non-dual, there's no path. In the non-dual, there's no past, there's no future. There's nowhere to go. So a path is something that happens over time, isn't it? But if you say that if through the process of meditation, you get really present to the point where you no longer have thoughts about the past, you no longer have thoughts about the future, there is only the present moment, there's no possibility for a path. So out of that spaciousness, we invent a path, which is, I will do my mindfulness practice every day, or I will do the practices of my tradition every day. We find a path that's useful. I'll go to my yoga class every day. We create a path for ourselves. But before there was even a path, there was luminous spaciousness, whatever one wants to call it, presence. And so then, but it's so helpful for me to be able to see and feel and hear a higher power and talk to the higher power and pray. I pray right now that I pray right now that every single person on the Zoom deepens their connection with higher power and also a sense of oneness in the universe. I pray that each of us gets what we've come for. And at one level, if you read my newsletter this week, you can just beam that out to the universe. You send it out, even if you don't know what you're talking to. You just say, if there's a God out there, if there's source out there, if there's Buddhas out there, if there's something out there, I'm praying to you. So you sort of send your messages out across the universe. That's one way that I can do it. I can just sort of pray to whatever's there without conceptualizing it. But other times, I can actually pray to the presence that's never been separate for me for a moment. That is the awareness itself, consciousness itself. And at other times, I can imagine an archetypal form that's, it could be in the sky above me, 20, 30 feet away, or it could be up close in the room, and you can vary that. And so we're in charge. We're in charge of our nervous systems. And so, or mostly in charge of our nervous systems, let's put it this way. I think it's really helpful to play with this, to say, I can visualize saints and Buddhas and higher powers and archetypal forms in any way I want. But also, let me be open to archetypal forms revealing themselves to me in whatever way they want. It's like that statement, I'm helping people fulfill, we're seeking to fulfill our potential in life. But that's quite sort of from the self, isn't it? We could turn it around and say, life is seeking to fulfill its potential in us, which is much more open to grace, which is grace is a spontaneous arising of presence of the sacred, of an experience of the sacred. One of the mystics talks about, going about our business in the world and then coming across a moment of the sacred unfolding. Whether it's a kid feeding the ducks or something that touches us in a way that we notice the sacred that has always been there. And so it's really helpful when we think about, think in this way about, there's a higher power that we can talk to, that we can pray to, that we can receive blessings from. And one of the forms of, blessings is the spontaneously arising blessings. And from a psychological point of view, you can say that it arrives from the unconscious or from the field. That we don't have to make it all happen. That one end of the spiritual spectrum is where, through great effort of meditation practice and prayer and self-mortification, which you can find in all the traditions, that through great effort and surrender, I get a connection with the higher power and the non-dual, the oneness. And at the other end of the spectrum, it can all just happen in an instant through receiving a blessing, grace, through grace. That some people have become spontaneously enlightened. Lucky them. And in between those two extremes of effort and spontaneous enlightenment is the possibility of us putting a little bit of discipline in and also being willing to receive blessing, to receive grace, to receive little moments of realization, grace that can come to us. And in the path that that I follow, Tibetan Buddhist path, it's very, there's a lot of effort involved. There are lots of, they made it really complicated, like sort of snakes and ladders. You have to go through all these steps. There are really lots and lots of steps. And basically, the idea is to get you sitting on your cushion and meditating for a lot of time. And that's basically what they do. And they're quite clever. They sort of engage the ego, so they make it competitive, so it's sort of like, well, I've done blah, 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 which is all nonsense, actually. But it does get you to sit on your cushion and meditate. So at the one hand, someone said to the golfer, I can't think which one it was now, South African golfer. He said to me, oh, that shot you did in the last championship was lucky. And he says, he replied, luck happens to those who practice. So the way I think to think about it is that grace happens to those who practice. Let's have a little bit, let's have some of both, but let's also invite the opportunity for just being blessed. So to talk about, because I'm trying to be careful with language, but it's really almost impossible not to use language that's associated with the tradition. So if I didn't want to use the word blessed, I would say that you could say that a flower naturally grows. Evolution naturally happens. It's a spontaneous happening. It's really built into the fabric of the universe, isn't it? And so psychological, one can take one step further than that and say psychological and spiritual evolution naturally happens. That we are creatures that learn, we are creatures that grow, we are on a path of integrating, and particularly if we support that path, if we give a little support to that path of integrating, it's more likely to happen. But it doesn't all have to happen through effort. So it's leaning into the mystery, being curious about the mystery. So some of you are a part of a tradition, and so you know the archetypal forms that you want to pray to. And some of you may have connections to, traditions from your childhood that you are finding a new relationship with. And some of you may have no tradition whatsoever, and in fact, have been wounded or traumatized by the tradition that you were brought up in, or just neglected, or it seemed too superficial, too intellectual, not deep. But really the question is, what can arise in you that will be something worth praying to? And if you have no tradition at all, you can pray, you can just make it up. I sometimes pray to the Big Bang, the creation of this universe. And I like the idea of the big bounce, that there was a contracting universe that contracted back to a singularity before the Big Bang. Whatever initiated all of that, I'm happy to pray to that. I'm happy to pray to the massive, expansive size of the universe. Whatever created all the neurons and the nerve endings in our bodies and our brain, and something extraordinary is here that I don't have to name with a tradition. I can just be, I can pray to whatever it was that created the swan, the leaf on the tree, I don't have to name it really. I can just have a sense of that I can pray to the great mystery that I'm curious about. And that works really, really well for people who, who don't have a tradition. For people who have a tradition, they're much more within, the tracks of that tradition, and that's fine. A great teacher in the tradition will have you at some point burst out of your tradition. Because the traditions are conceptual frameworks, and what we're talking about is deeper than conceptual framework. So the tradition is the finger pointing at the moon, not the moon itself. You could even say that it's the finger pointing at the reflection of the moon in water, not the moon itself. So we need to look less at the finger that's pointing and more at what's being pointed at, the moon. But nevertheless, there's a yearning in my heart to feel at peace with the universe, to feel at peace with life. And one way I can go is leaning into the sense of oneness. And another way that I can go is to just imagine this higher power as external to myself, but in relationship with me. And then talk to the higher power. And I could have many different versions. There's infinite possible ways of imagining, feeling, experiencing that higher power. I'm not so keen on, even if you, on the sort of wrathful God of the Old Testament, very fierce. But I can imagine all sorts of other forms. And I like to imagine saints and great teachers, and sons and daughters of, spaciousness of source from different traditions. And I have fun with it. I mix up. I have saints from different traditions hanging out with each other and having conversations. That's what happens in my inner life. I think of it as being like a Premier League football team, and you've got all the different, founders of all the different traditions of players on the field, and you can make up your own thoughts about who's the centre forward and who's the goalkeeper and who's, and then they all sit around in the clubhouse afterwards. Some of them drinking with each other, but a few of the great female practitioners are teasing Mohammed and trying to get him to drink some wine. You can do anything you want. It's your brain. But this idea that they're all together, and I can imagine them all sitting there going, "Oh my God, have you seen what my lot's done now?" And the other one says, "Oh God, my lot's even worse than your lot." So I'm just introducing some humor because there's a great mystery. And sometimes it's really useful to put aside the theology and just lean innocently, like an innocent child, into the great mystery. And of course, there are different levels of types of archetypal form. You can have great teachers as archetypal forms, but you can have energies, the energy of love. You can take the energy of love, you can take the energy of peace. You can take the energy. And also, I want to just remind us that we could I pray to Mother Nature sometimes. Because in the complexity of the biosphere, I can really sense the great mystery in the complexity of the biosphere. And I pray to Mother Nature that we humans get it together to look after her, because this is what, we depend on her for our life. So right now I can stop and I can just ask higher power, is there anything else that you want me to say? Even before we started this session, I said, look, I'm doing this for you, not for me. So you tell me what to say. It's a great thing to do in important situations, to say, when you want to give more than yourself, you can just say to higher power, can I just be a channel for you? I'll do the best I can on my side, but this is for you. So, I'm thinking of a poem and I can't quite remember it. It'll come back to me in a moment. But source wants itself to be known by us, by you. Every tradition says that. Source is leaning into the relationship with you. But you have to lean back. So if you do a little practice, if you do a little connection, if you just lean in that direction with your curiosity and an open heart, then source will lean back. It's sort of like date. You have a date with source, but you've got to take source up on the date. And probably, source won't go all the way with you on the first date. So, you need to have multiple dates with source. Maybe maybe source will go all the way with you on the first date. I don't want to overextend the metaphor. And that's why I think you've come on this call. We have come on this call because we're just wanting to deepen our relationship with source. And we can have conversations with, and we can do it, in a sort of pretty cognitive waking state. We can quite good to use a meditation technique to get into a body-mind generative state, connected state. Then we're talking to source from a deeper place. And sometimes source will answer and sometimes source won't answer. Sometimes we have to wait and be patient. And you could just, use psychological language and say, we're talking to the unconscious or the field, the community of mind. I'm not too bothered by the map, the way we describe it. I'm interested in connecting with forms that are bigger than us, or energies that are bigger than us. And I do, have a sense that evolution is a beautiful thing. And I do believe that there's cultural and psychological and spiritual evolution. And therefore, that's available to me. So before we do a meditation, any questions? I want us to be a bit careful. Last time there was too much said by one tradition. And I really want to make sure that we have the voices of multiple traditions and also people with no tradition whatsoever. So I'm particularly asking the people who spoke last time to keep, let others talk first, because I don't want it to be dominated. I want this to be inter-dominational, trans-dominant, denominational, post-religion rather than. So I'd love to hear from people who, particularly those who didn't speak last week. Any questions or comments? I've been, Albrecht, nice to meet you.
Question is, how do you trust? Do you have the trust before you approach the path or create the path, or is it that the trust comes in the process of it?
I think that's a good question. I think you've got to trust enough when you start, but then you need to keep checking it out. Is this really a path of the heart? Is this really loving? Am I developing? Am I growing? And particularly if you have a teacher in an Eastern tradition, there's a lot written about really checking them out and finding out if their faults are acceptable to you. So I think I wouldn't trust the path or the traditions as much. I mean, you've got to find a tradition that you can trust if you're going to use a tradition. But I would trust, what I can trust is that there is something here that has created me. I have come into existence, and I can trust that. So this sort of long process of evolution has created this strange creature called Julian. I can trust that. So that's where I start. Something's here that's made us, made this world. I can trust that. That's where I'd start. Thank you, Albrecht. Actually, if you're in a tradition, it's worth testing the tradition. I tested my Buddhist master on a number of occasions to find out whether he really had as much equanimity as he was said to have. It's like, go and find out if your priests are loving or not. Go and check these people out. Are they really walking the talk, or are they just talking it? So are people in that in a spiritual community that you've been checking out, are they really kind to people from all traditions? Are they generous-hearted? Are their smiles genuine and authentic? All of that stuff. So yeah. Any other questions or comments on what I've said?
Yeah, I've got one.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I'll try not to complicate things too much.
Oh, please do complicate them.
Oh, okay, we'll do then. So totally get connecting with nature, the universe, the Big Bang and all of that, totally get that. The bit that I struggle with on this idea is this thought of there's a higher, people praying to get what they want, like a shopping list almost. You could take the book The Secret. They're going, oh, you just think of it and it will come. And then what about all the people that are dying, or this is happening, or that? Why is it those people get favored, these don't? And so that's why, for me personally, I totally get it when you say about the field. And, like if I'm going to go and deliver a big workshop or something, there's something else comes in. But I kind of wrestle with the idea with a higher, someone that's sort of looking down at you and going, yeah, I'll give that to you, but I'm not giving that to you. Or that person can die young, or this person. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I don't believe in that.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's sort of like, you could say broader, I think it's helpful to think of something that's bigger than your skin encapsulated ego. Yeah. So something that's bigger than you. But there are a lot, one of the reasons why a lot of people are anti many religions, almost every religion has a wing of the religion that does awful, abusive things. Every religion does. That sort of money orientation, prosperity stuff that you'd find in America. But you find it all over. In fact, there was a thing in the the islands of around the world in in the Pacific, where they had these things when there was dramatic social change going on. There were these things that the anthropologists called cargo cults, that there was going to be some divine being that would one day arrive with a lot of cargo and lots of food and lots of what you needed, And so I think in extreme circumstances, people do subvert it. But I would say that if you have a practice that brings you into alignment with oneness, there is more chance that things will go better than if you haven't got a practice that brings you into alignment with oneness. But it's only a chance, because it may just be you walk in the street and a bus flattens you. But at least if we're aligned, we've got, when things are more likely to go better. But there's an awful lot of nonsense out there in every tradition, actually, every single tradition, which is why I'm quite keen on supporting people who are making up their own traditions. I mean, my basic view is deconstruct it all, back to its parts, and then take the bits that really seem useful and then reconstruct it again. Reconstruct your own tradition. Take the bits that work for you and not the bits that don't work for you. Put it together yourself. Don't let some other authorities, usually a man, and elder men with, some of whom are celibate, or a lot of them in some traditions are celibate, in all the traditions, don't let them tell you how to connect with the great mystery. I mean, there may be some people that you say, you are someone whose heart I feel, and you can support me, and you've walked further down this path. But don't just accept a sort of general rules from some old blokes about, how the higher mystery is, So really be really discerning, bring your discernment to it. That's what I would say. Find something that's really authentic to you and reject the rest of it. Be quite rigorous, throw the rest of it out. And there are people in every tradition that you'll find who have pure hearts, who are humble, pure-hearted, accepting people of other traditions other than their own, looking for the good in people, really simple stuff. Manage their tempers well, are kind, have presence. That's the stuff to look for. So yeah. So that, it's sort of, that's one of the reasons why for such a long time I haven't wanted to do these sorts of workshops, because there's so much awful stuff within mainstream traditions. But there is. So why am I doing it? Because having a sense of connection to how we are an expression of the universe is really a supportive and helpful thing. Not just at a theoretical or intellectual level, but at an experiential level. When I feel one with nature, I feel different. When I feel one with life, I feel different. When I feel connected to this when I feel like, it's this thing, I've used it before, but the ocean of existence. If I've identified with the wave with a little foam on it, I'm going to disappear, I'm going to die. I'm scared of that. But the more I identify with the ocean of existence, the less frightened I am of death. I mean, let's just keep it really simple. I'm frightened of dying. If I identify with the ocean of existence, I'm not dying. So let me move my sense of identification from this skin encapsulated ego to this. Really simple. Then when I die, I'm, I can just become one again. Isn't that nice? I can just dissolve. I can let go in all of that. But again, we're intellectualizing this, and the thing that's important is the practice. Like, do this every day. Let go of the ego into the meditation practice where there's no past and no future, and go on that journey. First, very often at the start of the journey, a lot of talk. You'll be talking to yourself about your work, and whether you've got a lover or not got a lover, and whether they're being nice to you today or not, or all the normal stuff of life. And you watch that, but that is all just the creativity of the universe. All that mind chatter is also the creativity of the universe. Nothing wrong with it, except that we let it dominate. It's like eating, if I only gave you carrot soup, you would start to think that carrots were not very nice things. But carrots are great as a part of a balanced diet. So the only problem is that we've got addicted to cognitive thinking. Our cultures have. Enrico, do you have a question? Or are you talking to someone else?
No, I got a question. More concrete. I got a question as social psychologist. During your teaching now about this non-duality stuff, to feel like a part of everything and of the whole, I ask myself, I don't know why, but because it's very abstract, and I know almost every one of us try it or do it. No, we know us so long. And I ask myself, and in the role of a social psychologist, if we meet us as a group now in this, we dissolving ourselves also in a little bit in a more not so big, huge, abstract way, but building doesn't mean building a group, solving also the own ego, not instead of rules, not rules, sorry, but also to give a part of the soul. Don't we share a part of our soul while we are now here together? Do we solving us in a, maybe more spiritual way? I have the feeling that during you speak, we solve the ego, in something else. And this room, which is a virtual room for me, it's a kind of also a resolution. I'm not here and then. I am in another space. I'm not connected with the all because I listen to you, but it's like a more, for me, easier way. It's the first step now in this moment.
Absolutely. So we can. This moment. I mean, hope possibly the way that I was talking at the beginning elicited a state of presence within the group that we could feel within the group. It's less strong now because we've got more into thinking. So there is the sort of there's the field here, there's the system here, and there's the system with you folks, and we're beginning to feel into that system. Then there's the sort of cultural system of people who come to these sorts of workshops, and then and then you can look at the systems beyond that. Then you can go to the biosphere, and then you can go beyond that. And so yes, we are connected in a field here that is more than ourselves. Any other questions, and then we'll do the meditation. Any other points or questions? Great. Good. So one of the things that I'm doing is I'm slowing myself down and just feeling my body, my emotions, and looking at you and noticing my breath and listening to the sounds in this room. And that is a part of the process of checking out what's here. Actually, I really like the concept from Taoism, which is that that there's the Tao, there's this moment, and this moment flows to the next moment. So there is actually a stream of moments, but you pay attention to each individual moment, and then that leads you, of course, to the next moment. And so that following the Tao is following the flow of moments. So it's being present in this moment, but there's a flow of moments, isn't there? The moment flows. And so I'm just checking into what's the flow. What's this flow of moments? What's in the flow with us right now? So just checking into that to start the meditation. And just to give you an overview of the meditation, so you know, we're going to start with just body-mind, getting body-mind connection and really presence into the present moment, letting go of past and future. We're going to start with that. And then we're going to just invite whatever archetypal forms has a connection with you to have a date with you. We're going to invite the archetypal forms with which you are connected, and maybe there'll be some archetypal forms that you didn't know you were connected to. So you don't have to work out what the archetypal form is. You just we'll sit in the meditation and see how and what comes. Much more interesting than constructing it and deciding it's going to appear this way. To sit and say, let me open into presence, and then see how presence wants to appear as a form. So one of the just easiest methods into presence is to just pay attention to the senses. And I do really like the idea that there's a billion miles between the top of my head and the bottom of my feet. And there are so many places I can check out. And of course, we've got the skin with skin temperature and clothing contacting our skin. And then I've got big muscles and small muscles. I just noticed paying attention to the muscles in my feet and the muscles in my back at the same time. And then I've got sound outside my window, the sound of my voice. What sounds can you hear in your body? And then what sounds do you have in your head? What do you have any voices in your head? Say hello to those voices or that voice. And observe it from a distance with compassion. It's just one of the things that's going on inside you. Are you seeing things in your mind's eye? Or are your eyes open? And if you're seeing things in your mind's eye, just notice what's there. Particularly paying attention to the body as well as what you hear, what you see. And if there's a lot of chatter, just make sure that you're observing the inner talk. One of the things I like to do is to see if I can catch the thought when it comes out of the rabbit hole. So here's a question for you. Where does the thought come from? Is it a rabbit hole? Where does the thought arise out of? So just relaxing. Just letting go of any stress that you had from the day. Yeah, when I say letting go, I mean acknowledge any activity from the day. You can just say, yes, you're here. And any thoughts about what you do next, you can say, yes, give me some space. I just want to be in this moment. And if you pay attention to this moment, notice that it changes every millisecond. Then just feeling a little love for life and for the universe. Just wonder about what archetypal form might come to you, whether it's a saint or a Buddha or a character from a novel, Galadriel from Lord of the Rings, or an image of the Big Bang or the scale of the cosmos. Or a wise person who channels, who has an empty space in their heart, in which lives the whole of existence. What if there was a place in your heart which contains either emptiness or the entire universe, or both at the same time? But just for the sake of a conversation, we could imagine it in front of us, if you find that helpful. And we could say, pray is a strong word. You could speak to, you could supplicate, you could long for, you could express your longing to the source that comes in this form for you. You could say, this is what I long for. And you might find that somehow saying to this archetypal force, source, saying this is what I long for, and this will help me express you more clearly in the world. Given source is interested in each of us as individuals, but also all of us as a community, and the whole planet as a biosphere. Source responds to saying, and may I be a channel for love. May I yourself and for others. Have a conversation. Heal me so I can be a healer. Help me feel love so I can give love. Help me express what's in my heart into the world so that I can enjoy that, and so can the world. Help me understand the mystery of life more fully. Help me feel a part of the source that is everywhere and in everything more fully. Help me be healthy so that my well-being enables me to be more kind and supportive. Help me be at peace with myself so I can demonstrate that to others. So I can be someone in the world who's at peace with themselves. So I can be someone in the world who loves well. So I can be someone in the world who enjoys life in a simple way. Help me notice the mystery not just in the successes, but in the little opportunities, the little moments, the humanity around me and myself. And notice the beauty of my own humanity, humanity of the people around me, the fragility and the beauty. Let me be so close to the magnificence of life that other people are touched by this. Let me be your friend and let me be your agent. I want to receive from you and also to give what I've learned, what I learn. Just through my being. I don't want to tell people about you necessarily, but I want to be someone that people can feel your presence in me. But choose your own words. These are just mine. Have a chat. Say, I want to build a relationship with you. I want to have you close with me all the time, and in my sleep, and in my good moments, and in my difficult moments. I want to be able to converse with you whenever I need to. I want to have fun with you. I want to play with you. I want to notice the miracle of being alive. Life is so short. May I savor every moment with you. And then when I die, go back into your arms. In fact, the greatest prayer may not even be with words. It may just be with a feeling in your heart. And perhaps you want to imagine continuing this conversation before you go to bed tonight, or when you wake in the morning, or in your dreams. And when I wake at night, this is who I talk to. When I daydream, this is who I talk to. When I have a break, I will often talk to this or other archetypal forms. And finally, it can always be really great to say, and I know that you are me, that you're in every cell of my body, that you are in my heart, that you are in my every breath, you are in my being. And to come back to that sense of that they're your nature. One step in the process is to imagining them showering you with words, showering you with light, healing light, filling you with positive energy. And that is a beautiful practice. And then afterwards, all of that energy that they've sent into you, that they filled you with, means your body transforms into them, you become them. And so what I want you to do is to just stay deeply connected, yet also reorientate to the group and to the screen. And turn your cameras on if you've turned them off. And we're going to talk about our experience in groups of 3 and groups of 4. And just you share, one person shares their experience and the others listen. You may not give advice. You may not sell them your tradition or religion. You may not proselytize. All you can do is listen and say, yes, I hear you, I hear you, I hear you, I hear you. And be touched by them, but no advice, no selling of your tradition, no telling them of your expertise. This is the people listening. Speaker speaks without, just with, tell me more. Oh, that's interesting. How touching. I feel touched by you. Those are the only responses. Groups of 3 will have 10 minutes per person to talk. Great. Here they all come. Great. So, yeah, comments, questions. How was that for you? Focusing particularly on people who are not part of a tradition, but also, yeah, from non-British traditions as well, if there are people from those. How was it for you? Let's hear. Or questions. Or did it all seem like complete nonsense? Great. Lydia and Maggie can turn their cameras on when you're ready.
I thought we were looking for no sense.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Exactly. Beyond the cognitive. Yeah.
I just wanted to say, Julian, at the end of the meditation, I liked it when you said about speaking to them before you go to sleep and when you wake up in the morning, and the idea of a more continuous connection.
Yes. I think that's a really great practice. You know, talk to them everywhere all the time. Basically, you want your resources around you all the time, and you want your spiritual resources around. I love it at night. If I wake, I can have, you know, a little meditate with, you know, with higher power. It's really, you know, I can lie in bed. It's great, meditating lying down. In fact, sometimes if I'm sitting on my cushion, I fall asleep. And then I can be in this half state between sleep and awake with my higher power, which is the most sort of blissful sort of place, you know. So yeah, great. Thank you, Sally. That's nice. What else? Did it not work for anybody?
I found the experience of sharing your experience, having acknowledged by someone else, in this case 3, Lyndon, Mark, and Paul. There's an amazing power there, just being held, if you will.
Yeah.
Not judged, not what I said is good or bad and right or wrong or this way or that way. It's just saying, you know, I sit here and I acknowledge, I hold what you have felt or what you're feeling or what your understanding is, and just leave it at that. There's an amazing power in there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's really, I mean, it's really, that's what I hope that everybody experienced, and you'll know in your group whether you experience or not, but just to listen with presence and a warm heart is incredibly validating for that experience. And we all need more of that in our lives. We all need to be around more people who just say, yes, I get it. And they don't say, oh yeah, mine's like this. Or they don't say, you know, they don't try and coach you or anything, but just say, yeah, I hear you. This is, yeah, like helping, just saying yes to the inner connection that we have. How is it? Yeah, for other people. We can sit quietly in silence as well. Did I see you wave your hand, Lyndon? Okay. Mark.
I'm just happy to share an observation while there's a little silence. I don't want to interrupt it for others, but I was, for me, the experience was very largely quite silent. And I was amazed then how I was able to talk quite fluently, I think, for about 7 minutes about something that was pretty much content free while it was happening. Quite what my audience thought of what I was saying in a different matter, but as Albrecht, who was one of the group, said,
hopefully they didn't.
It was beautifully received, and there was very little discussion.
Mark, hopefully they didn't think about what it was that you were saying.
Yeah.
They just felt it in their body and said, yes.
That's the point. And then that then transmitted in me to talk, because that's what the context required of me.
Yeah.
And I think very helpful to conceptualize and to put into words.
Right.
Something an experience which had no words at the time.
Yeah, it can be really powerful. All that meditation and inner practice that we do on our own, to just sometimes sit with somebody who listens without judging it, because the danger is you tell somebody in a normal context and they say, oh, but I do it like this, or you should do it like that. And that's not actually what's really empowering. It's just to have presence, love, and curiosity. How was it in other groups? And we can sit silently, so no one needs to speak to break the silence. Because actually, yeah.
Hi, Julian. I was with Maggie and Barbara and Celine, and we spoke a lot. We each spoke about our own experience of the meditation and also of the world, which was really beautiful. It was beautiful to hear everybody's talking, and beautiful to be listened to. And we spoke a lot about the spaces in between. The spaces in between was a phrase that kept coming up, and the expansion that's possible in the spaces in between. So, yeah, I'm grateful to those ladies. Thank you. I'm grateful to the group.
Beautiful.
I'm grateful to you, Julian, just for making the space. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Beautiful.
Yeah, in our group, it was a very good sharing, because nobody give advices. Everybody listened very open and carefully and without any comments, and it was an atmosphere of to be heard, and it was very precious.
Great, beautiful. Thank you for that, Gianrico.
Yeah, Julian, just to say, in our group, I think the three of us, we all had a very different experience in the meditation, which was absolutely fine. It was really good.
Great.
Added to that, because I was in Marina's group, we actually finished a bit earlier, but we had just a few minutes to talk with each other and share more, and that was really powerful for me as well.
So what just being able to chat? Yeah,
and to just share some, So that, for me, that was really lovely, because it's increasing that sense of connectedness and sharing as well.
Absolutely, that's right. Sometimes I have to be, particularly actually this group isn't so big today, but sometimes I have to be quite structured with groups, because you suddenly get someone who, in a group who's like, saying, well, if you really want the answer to this, come on my training, which starts on November the 5th or something, or people having quite fixed points of view. So I was really glad that, sort of I'm quite protective of just the listening space. But then at the end, if you're all soft-hearted and sharing, that's great. It's only I try and keep it structured, because sometimes people have bad experiences. I've had people who don't come back because they had a bad experience in a small group. So so if any of you had a bad experience in this small group, you'll be in a different group next week, so Yeah. But it's very, very delicate area, you see, because each of the traditions, you know, it's sort of one of the problems is that each of the traditions thinks they're the best tradition, basically, even if they pretend that they don't. And then there's always a slight tendency for people to sell their tradition. And even the ones that try not to can do it in a covert way. And so sometimes it's very, very easy for people to try and sell their map rather than just be curious about other maps, which I think is the most interesting thing. You know, that's what Gregory Bateson, who wrote this book called, he wrote the text for a book called Angel's Fear, although it wasn't published in his lifetime. His daughter, Mary Catherine Bateson, put it together. And it's called Angel's Fear because he was a scientist on the board of the University of California. He did all this great stuff in anthropology, in psychotherapy, in systems thinking. He worked in a lot of different fields. And so going in where angels fear is to go in the space in between science and spirituality. And he said that, you know, wisdom is having multiple descriptions of the world. So if you think about the map making process, you know, the map is not the territory. The map is a reduction of the experience. It's a sort of linear reduction of experience. So one way you can improve your maps is having several different maps, seeing where they overlap and looking for the spaces in between where they don't overlap. You know, so being really curious about lots of different approaches will give you a richer, deeper experience of the great mystery. So it's sort of great to have a single practice. You know, it's great to have not just to be, you know, a sort of, 30 cities in 20 days type of tourist, you know, not to be a tourist, but to have your practice that you're committed to and you have faith in and that really supports you, and also just be curious about other traditions, particularly the mystics, because they're the ones who the experiential people. You know, I'm less interested in people who've got fantastic theories and models and talk about it from their heads, but more about people who feel it in their bodies. But when you listen to the mystics, they're saying very, very similar things in all the different traditions. That's why they all get on so well with each other. When you see the Dalai Lama and Bishop Desmond Tutu, they're all, you know, they're pulling each other's ears and, you know, teasing each other and playing together. When the Catholic modern mystic Thomas Merton died, the Dalai Lama went to his memorial service in New York, especially. So that's sort of the approach to take. And we're in a time now where we're not going to be burnt at the stake anymore for being, you know, for making up our own version. You can make up your own version, and obviously it needs to have love at its heart. Yeah, anything else before we finish? I'm going to do that, you know, my final closing exercise, which many of you know what it is, but anything else before we close? Okay, I'd like to hear from everyone. We've got 5 minutes. What's a phrase or a sentence, but not much more than a sentence, about how you're feeling right now? Say that again, Amanda.
Low.
Low?
Low.
Low, okay, great.
No, not low, slow.
Low, okay, great. My brain must be slow, so.
Happy.
Happy, yeah.
Grateful and relieved.
Lighter.
Spacious.
Feeling harmony.
Harmony.
Caring.
Curious.
Curious and
Grateful to be in a community.
grateful to be in a community.
Gliding.
Say it again, Celine.
Gliding.
Gliding.
Like a plane, no?
Gliding, yeah. Beautiful.
Connected.
Connected.
Centered.
Marija.
I feel powerful from different experience. What I hear, it was beautiful, and I say life is beautiful.
Filled.
Filled.
Generous and compassion.
Generous and compassion. Take care. Lots of love to you all.
Yeah.
We're going to do all three together next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a great day.
Thank